Today we're talking about unlocking safety and the photometric transformation at Halifax Airport. I'm very, very honoured and proud to be able to present a case study presented by today's guest star, Josh Kolstee from Halifax Airport. If you could flip to the next slide, please. Today we have the usual panel. But enhanced by the presence of Josh, who's joining us live from Halifax, who will be leading today's presentation case study. Josh has worked for the Halifax Airport Authority for a number of years. He's starting working on the electrical side, asset management, fleet management, and now oversight of the airfield lighting and the preventive maintenance regime. Tony Smith, as a regular presenter, inventor of the PAPI, known, I think, world renowned, known to you all. Kev is the managing director of TMS training, based out of the UK, runs the TMS training courses in conjunction with Tony Coates, who is currently attending an EASA airfield lighting safety conference, and he's joining us from Budapest if he's able to join us. I think the communications may be a bit ropey there, but
yeah, I'm back. I've got different Wi-Fi.
Oh, fantastic! So Tony is there. Great. Ryan has just joined TMS MALMS from Manchester Airport. We're delighted you're able to join us today, and is working out of our Staffordshire office in UK. Rob Billingham leads our MALMS software, TMS software development, is responsible for all of our asset management and a lot of the software you'll find in the tools and equipment you use with your MALMS systems today. Keith will be hopefully joining us today. Keith is due to join us. I don't know if he's online yet. He's working from home today. Well known to you as independent consulting engineer, world recognized trainer, and very knowledgeable in all aspects of airfield lighting. And of course, myself, managing director of Telemade Systems and MALMS Navaid, our US subsidiary. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand over now. Josh will tell you the story of Halifax International Airport and the transformation of airfield lighting. So over to you, Josh.
Thank you, Robert. Really appreciate it. Privileged to be asked to present today. Known Robert for quite a few years and the team there at TMS and MALMS. Met Robert here again month and a half ago at a conference, and I did this presentation, and Robert said, Josh, I'd be very privileged for you to present on your journey on where you were at Halifax and where you are today and what it took to get there. So that's kind of what I'll be talking about here today a little bit, is about metrics and decision making, what that means. Without the metrics, how do you know if you're making the right decisions? So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit here over the course of the next hour. So some of the objectives, basically, I'm going to give you a brief overview of who we are here at Halifax Airport, what our airport is like, some of the history, AGL maintenance at HIA, again, kind of over a 10-year journey, the implementation, what it took to get us where we are today. Data-driven decisions. Again, without the data, how do you know if you're making the right decisions? I think that's one of the big things this journey has taught us with introducing MALMS into our preventative maintenance program here. And I want to call it that because that's essentially what it is. It's a whole program for our preventative maintenance at the airport. Some of our achievements, what have we done? What accomplishments has this implementation done for us? And where we're going next? We're not done. We're still evolving. We're still developing new processes and procedures to create efficiency and better airfield lighting inspections. Before I go any further, Robert, I appreciate the introduction. And again, my name's Josh Kolstee. Been with the Airport Authority for about 10 years. I started here in the Field Electrical Center as an electrician. I came at the right time, let's say. I had a good team of individuals that I worked with, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the key components of helping with the onboarding of our MALMS photometric processes and systems here at HIA. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I moved on to service and asset management. So looking after all the asset management for the airport, all the preventative maintenance for all the trades groups. And today, in 2019, I took a position manager of airside services. So basically today, I look after everything airside except for electrical. I look after all of the preventative maintenance for all of our fleet, snow removal, which is a major part of our role here for 4 to 6 months of the year, and also all the hard surface maintenance airside. So everything except for lighting. One thing I did, and we had a little chat here ahead of time. I think what's really helped over here, we have 40 staff just for snow clearing in the winter. They never really understood the importance of what lights were for. You know, they have a general idea, they're operators, but they never really knew. And I think sharing that knowledge and input really has closed the gap a little bit during the winter months and the appreciation for what lights are. So just wanted to give a little background on who I am and where we are today here in Halifax. Here's just an image of Halifax. For those of you that don't know Halifax, maybe haven't been here. We're on the east coast of Canada, as far east as we can get. We're a small international airport. We have about 4.2 million passengers a year. We have 2 runways. We have a Cat 2 runway, or 0523. It's approximately 3,200 meters long. We also have runway 1432, which is 2,347 meters long. Now, these runways form a T formation, so they're intersecting runways. We have 13 taxiways, 3 main aprons. Apron 1 is for our passenger aircraft, and apron 2 and 3 is for large freight and private aircraft. We also have a large de-icing facility on the main apron, out front of the main apron, kind of in towards the intersection of the 2 runways. You will see there of the concrete pads possibly in the image. So a little bit of history, the evolution of AGLs here in Halifax. So we've got approximately 2,282 luminaires on our airfield. Not a lot, but you know, that's what we have here for 2 intersecting runways. Of those luminaires, 786 are inset lights, and we have 65 signs. We also have a couple sets of PAPIs as well, as Tony would like to hear probably. So these images are some of our initial testing of our photometrics early on. This was when we kind of used the C1. It was a C1 fixture, 210 watt, 1960s vintage, military grade. A Canadian military, I believe, utilized this fixture for many, many years as well. These were kind of the results that we were getting with those initial fixtures. And, you know, looking at all the red on the screen here, this was after we would go out and we'd level and align and relamp and, you know, make sure there was new lenses on the lights. It was pretty disappointing when we would go out, you know, and for our initial test, and, you know, we put all the effort in and going out and doing this, and this was our end result for our runway edge lights. To the visual eye, it looked great. It looked great, you know, and I still remember the group of Field Electrical Center guys, you know, spending weeks and weeks prepping for our first photometric test. You know, we thought very positive that this is going to be great, and we get these types of results back. Not what we were hoping for, so we knew something had to change. The graph on the right is a serviceability for our Cat 2 runway elevated edge lights. As you can tell, as most of you are well aware, the red are fails, the blue are requiring maintenance. We don't see many greens out there, a couple out there, but not a whole lot. The graph on the left-hand side, that's our runway centerline lighting. That's our inset lights for our Cat 2 runway. Again, from the visual eye, these looked great. And to get these initial results were something we had to sit down and say, okay, why are we getting these results, and what can we do to improve this the serviceability? So in 2017, our planning and infrastructure, our engineering department that looked after rehabilitation of concrete surfaces on the airfield, we're deploying a project on runway 23, our Cat 2 runway. And as part of that work, they were resurfacing the whole touchdown zone area on that surface. So at that time, all the lights had to come out. So we decided, well, let's put new lights in. And we had some test equipment here. We had a photometric trailer, and we said, well, part of the requirement, we're going to, after the lights are installed, the new lights, we're going to do a photometric test. So the graph on the left-hand side, you'll see most of those big green dots. Now, I will note that the intersection was not completed at the time that this test was done, and a couple lights you'll see at the I think it would be the starboard side there of the surface as well. But ultimately, we were in good shape. The lights were looking good. The contractors were going to finish the intersection before the winter. I believe this was in October when this we're like, okay, this is great. Then let's fast forward to 6 months later, after the winter. We decided to do another test. These are our results. And you would think, well, Halifax, we get a lot of snow, we get a lot of freezing contaminants on our surface as well. These results were after we actually went out and hand cleaned every lens on the touchdown zone light. 6 months after a brand new halogen, these aren't LED, they're just regular halogen inset lights were installed. Disappointing. So we learned something. We said, well, how are we ever going to maintain our airfield to the level, to the requirement and regulation if we can't get one winter out of our fixtures without them failing? So we knew we had a problem. So we started digging into, okay, what can we do? How do we, because we were at this time, we were talking about replacing all the fixtures, upgrading to LED. Well, that's great. The LEDs are brighter, but that's not going to solve our problem of why they're failing within 6 months over one winter period. So what was doing this? What was our issue? So this is where the data started driving some decisions, and what I really say the real value of MALMS to us here in Halifax. Again, here's another serviceability chart on where we were really at. We use this data to start to kick off conversations with our infrastructure department as well on, hey, we need to do something with our lights. What can we do? And we started doing some investigating into sapphire lenses, because what was the actual failure point on our fixtures was the lenses themselves. They were getting so scratched here in Halifax. We utilize runway sweepers for our winter snow removal and contaminants with steel bristles. Steel bristles and glass, they don't, let's say that they work against each other, put it that way. So we started using this data and started to sell some ideas to our planning and infrastructure group on, hey, we need to move to something better. So the implementation, I want to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to go back to Sapphire here in a minute. So in 2016, we rented, or we were in the process of purchasing a MALMS photometric trailer. That's when we started kicking off a lot of the photometric testing and doing some preliminary test results on where we're at and where we need to get to. Say around 2019 is when we started introducing our MALMS engineer system. So what that consisted of was asset tagging. So tagging each LED fixture, each inset fixture. We don't tag our elevated fixtures, but each inset fixture is tagged with an RFID tag, which is updated into a register system, a database for all of those fixtures. So we can see the entire life cycle of that fixture, how many times it was rebuilt, where it's been on the airfield. Another part of the MALMS engineer process and implementation was the RFID tag installation in the pavement. This, we thought at first, we started thinking about, okay, your RFID tags on your fixtures, you're putting a glass RFID tag in the pavement. This is going to be a lot to maintain. Well, I'll tell you, it's the farthest thing from the truth. It's been very, very easy to manage. It's made our preventative maintenance here in Halifax has been reduced greatly due to this. And again, I'll get into that a little bit deeper here in a little bit. In 2021, we also introduced our MALMS light cleaner. We started to realize that the only way to get proper photometric serviceability results on our airfield is to have an actual cleaning piece of equipment. So that has been very, very valuable for contaminant removal, rubber removal, and ensuring those lights are to the brightest ability when we do our testing. And in 2023, we also implemented a MALMS sign, PAPI, and luxometer. And we'll go into that a little bit here in the next couple slides as well. So my thought is, how can you manage an asset without this basic data? You need basic data in order to manage it effectively and make decisions on what's right for your airport. Because I think every airport's different. And, there's regulation on very specific about when testing should be done and how it should be done. Now, I personally agree with using the data to your advantage to see when the right time to do your testing at your airport is. It's dependent on so many factors. It's dependent on your contaminants on your surface. It's dependent on how many takeoffs and landings you have at your airport. There's so many different aspects, and every airport's a little bit different. And I don't think one set standard is ideal for an airport to base their testing regime off of. So just wanted to, for those who don't know what all of these are, I'm sure most people on the call do today. So we did acquire a bench tester as well. Obviously, that's a key component in order to building your asset register. And also one thing we do with that is test every light that comes out of the box from the manufacturer. This way you can hold your manufacturer accountable for their lights to meet that 100% output or higher before we even put it on the shelf as a usable fixture to go into the airfield. Now, we also had, when we did the initial touchdown zone lighting replacement in 2017, we trained our contractor. So we have a contractor that does project work, big replacement of lights and so on. We also have a team of approximately 6 electricians that does the maintenance and runs the photometric system. But we trained our contractors and put it in the tender documents that, hey, when we're replacing all these lights, you have to photometrically test every light. You have to RFID tag and put it into our register system. We taught them how to use the scanning tool to scan the RFID tags and associate them properly when they're being installed. And part of the tender document for them to get the project to install the lights was also to meet our photometric requirements. So after the lights were installed, making sure they were angled appropriately, making sure the right spacers were put in. There's so many factors, and I think us as airports need to develop those standards for going out to tender or an RFP for any future work with contractors. Otherwise, how do you hold them accountable to ensure that what you're asking for is actually what you're getting? Photometric cleaner, again, the light cleaner has been a very, very valuable tool. We also, as I mentioned, the engineer torque system was another very valuable and educational tool for us on our bolt torquing requirements here at HIA. Again, the most recent implementation has been our sign and PAPI tester. We're in the process of developing more prominent inspection criteria to that, and as well as our luxometer. And we'll talk a little bit about that here as well, about why we did that and how we decided to implement that into our strategy here. So I mentioned earlier, I'm going to come back to inset AGL failure. So there's a picture what Halifax can look like. Now, typically we're not a climate here that gets a nice, dry, fluffy snow. We get freezing rain. We get thaw cycles. We get 90 centimeters of snow at times, like last February. When we start to get into that time of year, our runway sweepers are out there very, very frequent. Again, we use steel bristles. So this has been a very detrimental tool to our actual inset lights. What we're seeing is the glass will not withstand the constant sweeping on these surfaces. As you could see from our original results, we couldn't even get a 6-month period out of those, and that's after prominent cleaning. So they're really, both departments have a job to do. The airfield electrical needs to maintain those lights to the highest standard, and there is a standard, right, above that 50% light output. Ideally, we'd like to keep it well above the 70%. But we also have to keep our runway condition code for the aircraft, for the pilots, so they can actually land the aircrafts here in Halifax. And poly bristles don't work for us here in Halifax. It just does not work with the type of contaminants that we get. So we have to use steel bristles. And that, it doesn't align with our fixtures. So what you'll see here is a decision that we had made to go with sapphire lenses. So the glass on the left-hand side is a sapphire lens, same type of lens as the right, except for the left-hand side has a sapphire coating on it. Now, what I did in this picture is they were both brand new lenses. Took a razor blade and, as hard as I could, and scratched that lens. Now, the regular glass lens on the right-hand side, that's what it did. It's quite scratched up, quite prominent, if you can see that. So imagine thousands of steel bristles going over that. And what it does is it just gouges that glass and disintegrates it really over time. And the visibility for the light to actually come out is diminished so fast. And the sapphire on the left-hand side, it's amazing. We are seeing now today, we have decided actually from that initial trial, we kicked off an airfield full LED light replacement project. So we did all of our inset lighting, as well as all of our elevated taxiway and edge lights. But all of the inset lighting now on our airfield is pretty much sapphire lenses. We have a taxiway right now that we're working on to finish up switching over to sapphire. But what we did is we went out when we did our initial LED project, we ordered every fixture with sapphire lenses. And that project, I believe, was 2019 when we did that. And these lights, as you'll see from some of my slides here in a few minutes, are performing well beyond what that 6-month trial that we saw there with just the touchdown zone lights. We would never have been able to manage and maintain our serviceability here in Halifax without these sapphire lenses. One thing I will touch on that we are seeing is the lights now have been in since 2019. So we're about 5 years in with these LED fixtures with sapphire lenses. What we're seeing now is the output and from the photometric testing, the lights are still 100%, 120, 110% output on our fixtures. What we're seeing is the actual aluminum around the lens itself is wearing. We're actually getting to a point where we're going to have to really start to monitor those to, because the gaskets will start to fail here. The bristles from our runway sweepers are eating away, let's say, a little bit at the aluminum around the fixture, just due to those edges and the shape around that lens. But the lenses are still passing. The lenses are still in incredible shape, which is remarkable if you ask me. Engineer. So again, how do you manage your assets? So right here in Canada, we have Transport Canada regulations. We also do adhere to and take on some of the ICAO and as well as the FAA regulations as well. So there's an advisory circular 02008 I wanted to put on here. So bi-monthly checks, bolt torque, the torque of the bolts attached in the light to its base should be checked. The impact of aircraft wheels can loosen mounting bolts and cause misalignment or fixture damage. This is particularly troublesome in the touchdown zone. They're right. One thing bi-monthly checks. So we started with that. We started doing bi-monthly checks on our all of our inset lighting here in Halifax. And what you can see here in the image is kind of the information. So it tells you what light fixture it is, the lat long coordinates, where it's located, the date, the time that this light was tested, and the average angle each bolt moved in degrees, and how many readings were taken. So there were 6 bolts in that light, it says. Readings taken were 6, and the average degree moved was 4.4 degrees. Very minimal, 4 degrees on as an average. So what we can do with this data is really start to see what are your areas, your troublesome areas. Do you have high-speed turnoffs that, I think would be just as bad, if not worse, than your touchdown zones due to the sheer pressure that is put on those cans in those locations? We don't have any of those, fortunately. But what we saw was we could start to extend out that time period because our bolts were staying perfectly tight. We could look at the data, we could analyze the data and say, hey, there's nothing changing. Okay, let's run this for a year. Okay, we're not seeing anything different. Let's try it again. Okay, we can extend that out an extra month. And right now we do, every 6 months, we go out and actually do our bolt torques on all of our fixtures. Now, if we start to see certain areas or we start to get heavier aircraft, we may need to adjust that again. But without this data, I think there's a thing called over maintaining as well. And this is where I said at the beginning, every airport, I believe, is a little bit different. And, without having the metrics and this data to really analyze, how can you manage your assets effectively? So the engineer system has been very, very valuable. Apron luxometer. This was another one that kind of, so we kicked off a project in 2021, I believe, 22, and yeah, maybe it was 22, I think. It was, so we had a design concept to redo all of our lighting on our apron, on our main apron. We were going to switch everything over to LED lights. So we thought about it for a minute. We said, okay, there's also standards on how much lux, how many lumens in certain areas on your stand. We don't consider, I think sometimes we're always so focused on runways and taxiways and PAPIs. we kind of forget about, hey, there are regulations, there are requirements for apron stand lighting. What if there was an incident out there and, it was brought to the fact that, hey, your lighting wasn't up to the regulations. So again, what we did, we kind of used what we did with our contractors when they started redoing all of our airfield lighting in LED. We said, well, if we're replacing these, when they're replaced, that we need to ensure they're at the right angles, they're the right lux, we have the right lumens, the right color. All of these things need to happen. So in the tender document going out, we said, okay, we'll replace all the LED, but the contractor is responsible that you must meet this criteria, which is our standards. And we were very fortunate that MALMS had a testing tool, the Luxometer, which basically tells you various locations on a stand, what the light level should be. It's a very easy tool to go out. It only takes, I'm going to say, 5 to 10 minutes per stand to go out and walk around with this unit. And it tells you where you're at with your horizontal and your vertical alignment and your lux in those areas. Very useful tool to hold manufacturers accountable for their light output, to hold contractors accountable, to ensure that you're actually, when you're rolling out a new project, that you're actually getting what you're paying for, what you're asking for. Otherwise, if you're not measuring it, how do you know? Very, very, very useful tool. And with it, we did have to make adjustments. There was angles and stuff that weren't quite right. Some of the lights had to be adjusted this way or that way to make it work. Asset performance. So what does the whole, having all of these things, serviceability, cleaning, torque, photometrics, having this all in one database, being able to actually track each asset individually is so valuable. It's, not only tracking the life cycle of the assets, it will help you, I believe, make decision-making down the road. Maybe you bought a type of fixture and, you can compare it to a different type of fixture and maybe it's not performing as well. That should help with the capital expenditure in the next project or the next replacement of, hey, this is the reason we want to go with the more expensive fixtures, or this is the reason we need to go with sapphire lenses. Because without this data, you can talk until you're blue in the face sometimes when you're asking for money to replace things on your airfield. But being able to actually properly show that, hey, this fixture with a sapphire lens is far superior. Here's the data. This is why we want to spend that extra money. So valuable information, and again, for just tracking your overall life cycle of your assets. Inventory management. So this is, I would say this is just a very nice perk that you get with, we never really thought of it a whole lot when we started with our inventory management or with our MALMS system here at Halifax. But now that we've implemented the whole process of RFID in each light fixture, as soon as you do that, recording the serial number, the type of light, it actually puts it right into a inventory management for you. So you can go on here and you can see how many lights are in the runway, how many do you have in stock, how many need work done to them, and what your total number of lights are. So at any point, you can use this for your own inventory program. So it's not a spreadsheet. It's not a separate having someone go out there and count the fixtures. If you're managing the software and the assets appropriately on the way the system is designed, you get this as just part of the process because it's managed effectively. Very, very valuable. And I think it's a tool that, again, we weren't really expecting to really benefit from the inventory side, but it is something that we do utilize now that we've implemented the system wholly. So talk about serviceability for a minute. That's what this is all about, I believe, at the end of the day, is, ensuring your surface, your AGLs are at the highest serviceability as possible. So as you can see on the left-hand side, that's kind of a representation of what we get on our each runway, each course of, hey, is your runway with all your light fixtures meeting the serviceability requirements based on whatever standards you're under, whether it's FAA, whether it's Transport Canada, whether it's ICAO, whatever you're utilizing for your jurisdiction. And then you can also see where you've gone and where you've come from our initial testing to where we are today. So this is the 2016 to present beam intensity. So this was for all runways, and average beam intensity, this was overalls for 05, runway 05, is now 92%, but that's also taken into consideration the first couple tests that we have done. Not sure if you can see my mouse here on the screen or not, but you can see where we were right around the 50% mark. Then we decided to do a LED lighting project with sapphire lenses. So during that process, it took a couple months there to do that, as you can tell, and the numbers shot up dramatically. And what you can see is once we got up over that 95% threshold, it stayed there for the most part, because we're actively testing our lights on a monthly basis. What we do now is, with the light tester, at first we started just going out and doing a photometric test on our lights every month. And we soon realized that without cleaning those lights before we go out and do a test, didn't make sense. The lights would not be at the level that they need to be, because you do have contaminants, you have rubber deposits on the fixtures, you have other debris of dirt and grime that just is in nature. So what we do is every month now we go out and we do a cleaning on our fixtures with our light cleaner, and then the next night or two we'll go out and we'll do a photometric test on our fixtures. And as you can see, we're very easy now able to maintain that 92% or higher beam intensity on all of our fixtures. Now, when we first started, we thought, I remember sitting around as a group with our field electrical center talking about this MALMS photometric testing was really all we were talking about at that time. And we thought, oh, we can never do that here in Halifax. We're going to have to hire 3 to 4 more people. The maintenance, how we're going to manage all of this. And I'll tell you what, it's the complete opposite today. It's actually reduced our preventative maintenance on the airfield dramatically. Whereas before, you used to go out and do a daily airfield inspection using your visual eye, which we still go out and do. But that would drive all of our maintenance for the most part. We'd go out and we'd make sure, okay, that light's dim, that light's out, we'd replace fixtures. Today, it's a complete opposite. We go out, we're looking for any major abnormalities with our lighting on the airfield, but it's our photometric testing on the monthly basis that actually drives the maintenance month to month. Now, the other thing we have done is we also have routine maintenance schedules built into our Maximo system for all of the work as well, with all the results and so on from the photometric testing, as well as our engineer results. So I know you remember the first, probably slide 4, I believe, on the presentation of where we kind of started here in Halifax. Want to really show you now, this is where we're at today. So this is our touchdown zone lights as well. On the left-hand side here, you'll see the TDZ. So this was the first course of lights that I showed you in 2017 after 6 months of one winter season. Those halogen regular lens fixtures failed, and we couldn't get them to a passable level. Now, this is 5 years later, and our lights are still well over the 100% threshold. I contribute that 100% to sapphire lenses. Without the sapphire, we would not be able to do that whatsoever. It's not because of just the light cleaner. It's not because of that. It's the sapphire lenses that were ultimately the key ingredient to maintaining serviceability on our inset lighting. You'll also see there on the right-hand side a bit of our edge lights. The serviceability on those has been fantastic. We've had very, very few issues with the, we actually went with a Hella LED fixture for those, and they're great. Let's say they're far superior than our C1 1960s vintage incandescent lights that we used to have on the airfield. Now, we're talking about decision making and where we went at Halifax, and I know there's a lot of reluctance with different airports as well on how do we do better. It's following the process and the system that is put in place already with these tools. Without that, I don't know how an airport is supposed to manage their airfield lighting to a level that is required by all regulations today. And again, I know the reluctancy out there. I know when we first brought it on, we thought this would be such a challenge to implement and maintain down the road. Again, we were talking about, we're going to have to hire double the staff to do this. And that is complete opposite now. Now our time spent on the airfield as well for our airfield electrical center is a lot less. So less maintenance happening on the airfield, less airfield incursions on the airfield as well. You start to reduce the traffic, vehicular traffic on the airfield. So there's been a lot of positives to this implementation here in Halifax. And again, I think, any airport that is looking to do a replacement that is having issues with inset lighting in particular, and aren't able to maintain the light output out of those, should really be considering a sapphire fixture, especially if you're into a climate like we are here in Halifax, where there's a lot of sweeping. Sorry. So just want to talk a little bit here about future development in Halifax. So some of the, we're not done yet. We've done a lot of implementation over the last almost 10 years now, but we're still not done. There's still things we can improve upon, and that's kind of the mindset that we're having is, okay, we're at this stage. We've come this far. Now, what can we do better without, we don't want to waste time. We don't want to put resources into something that's not a big advantage by any means. So we want to increase our photometric assurance on non-runway surfaces. So what that means is a lot of our taxiways right now, our staff is, looking at how do we do more photometric testing. It wouldn't be as frequent as runways, but doing more photometric testing on taxiway lighting. Develop a more data-driven PM and replacement schedule in Maximo for AGL maintenance. Currently replacing remaining taxiway inset lenses with sapphire. So right now we have our Cat 2, it's our high-vis taxiway. It's a inset lighting that we originally installed without sapphire lenses. They were a type of fixture that we just, it was one of our first trials. I'm trying to think, that must have been back in 2017. Well, they don't last. We learned that pretty quick. So our own team of 6 electricians are in the process of just gradually getting those switched out. And once we have those switched, we'll be able to maintain that to a high level as well with the sapphire. Another thing we're looking at is how do we use the data to determine a predictive life cycle of inset fixtures with sapphire lenses? So that's something we got to look at now is, how do we, there's going to be a point where those lights are still going to fail, whether it's the lens, whether it's the LED, whether it's the aluminum body on the fixture itself. So now I'd really like to start to develop, how do we predict that? How do we develop and give our planning and infrastructure, how do we sell that project of, hey, we need to replace all inset lights on the airfield? Is that at the 10-year mark? Is that the 15-year mark? Let's start to predict these things before the lights even get to a failure point or get to a point of, requiring they're down to a 50 or 60% level. I would love to be able to look at our data and say, okay, by the trend that we're seeing in 2030, our fixtures are going to be failed based on this trend that we're starting to see, based on the photometric results that we have received over the years. The life cycle, the trend is starting to fall off. Let's put a project together for 2030 to replace all of the inset fixtures. And let's start to use that data again of, what lights work, what brand, what manufacturer, what type of lenses. I think that's very important with this data is you can actually start to use that and actually put it in front of someone that has the purse strings to give you the money for these, and you can easily justify it. Another thing we're doing for future development is implementing routine testing for new LED PAPIs and signs. So we have been doing some sign testing with our sign tester. Now we've also installed LED PAPIs here in Halifax. Let's say I don't personally, from what I'm hearing from the Field Electrical Center, it may not be as good as what the original PAPI was, Tony. I'm not just patting you on the back there. The LED fixtures are, so we're having, with the current manufacturer that we purchased them from, there's a couple issues with the color in the lenses and so on as well with these that we're working with MALMS and the manufacturer on right now to make some adjustments. So we can actually get these to pass the color requirements that are the design of the PAPI. Again, though, if you went and installed LED PAPIs and didn't do this testing, how would you know what you're getting from the manufacturer? I think that's the very important piece here is, there are standards, there are requirements, manufactured requirements for these products, but without having a tool that you can actually do the testing once it's installed on your airfield to say yay or nay, it meets or it doesn't meet. How do you know what you're getting? I think we sometimes feel that nothing about the manufacturers. I think they all have great intent, but I just feel sometimes we have to, do our own double due diligence, I guess is what you would call it at the end of the day, to make sure that we're getting our what we're looking for and what we need to meet regulations, to meet our standards. So, it's getting to be that time of year, and this is kind of what our airfield can look like some days out there. So I'm talking, I know a lot of people on the call probably don't see this type of weather. So we do a lot of sweeping. Our inset lights and sweepers are not conducive to one another, but we found a way to maintain our asset life cycle to the best of our ability here today. I just want to say thank you again. I know we're getting short here on time, and there might be some time here for some questions and answers period. So I want to thank everyone for the time here today and for Robert and his team.
Okay, thank you, Josh. That's absolutely amazing. It's really, I think, it's something that our audiences, I know, particularly enjoy from our feedback, is when we get some case studies, some real life examples of how you do stuff out there, the challenges you face, and how it all works. So if you can stop sharing now, we'll go to our panel and we'll take some questions from the audience. So first of all, a question regarding talking. This is one, I guess, for you, Josh. Which of the main which of the main areas you identified as lights becoming loose? Did you increase the frequency, and for the areas where you decreased, how much did you decrease them by?
Yeah, so we've been pretty fortunate here in Halifax that our fixtures, even our touchdown zones, didn't have a big variance in. That would be our biggest area would have been our touchdown zone for our the bolt loosening portion, but it wasn't enough to start to break up. Okay, we need to do this area on a higher frequency than this area at this point. But as aircraft change, I believe, the last one thing we did look at was we have a lot more heavies, a lot of 747s for cargo. And, we were getting quite a few of those on a weekly basis, which really changed the dynamic of what is that doing to our fixtures. And, we could really start to look at that data, but it didn't do enough yet to our fixtures to actually break it up into certain areas on the airfield. But we could see that the touchdown zone was an area that the bolts would loosen up a little bit more percentage-wise, degree-wise, than other areas. So I think the way I look at it is you could actually use that data, as mentioned in my presentation, about you could start to look at certain areas of light, certain frequencies for high-speed turnoffs, due to the loosening or the maintenance procedures, and set up those frequencies based on different locations. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yep. Thank you. Another question is how is RFID tagging? How is RFID tag fixed on the pavement and on the pavement fixture in the pavement itself? I assume it means, and on the light itself. How do you fix the tags, and are elevated lights tagged? This is from Barry.
Yeah, Barry, great question. I should have mentioned that in my on that slide. So what we do is basically use a hammer drill, and the actual glass RFID tag is actually drilled into the asphalt or concrete, whatever your surface is, right beside the fixture. We did it in a location kind of in a northing area, so we know where they are on the airfield. So you drill the asphalt or the surface. You drop the little glass RFID tag in after you scan it to make sure that it works properly, and then you fill it with a compound. It's a very small hole, like 3/16, which would probably be 3 to 5 millimeter hole. Fill it with a compound, and and believe it or not, we have very, very, very few issues with any of those RFID tags in the airfield. The ones on the actual fixtures, on the inset fixtures themselves, they're basically just tie wrapped to the secondary cord on the fixture, and again, that's just a easy replaceable item as well.
Right. Thank you. The next question is concerning feedback. What feedback have you had from the end user? So have you had any reaction from pilots to what's happened, what you've achieved here, from the airport itself or your regulatory authority?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that we've received feedback from is from pilots themselves. Pilots where they used to come in with the lights on a level 5, in a, not great weather. Now we're hearing pilots, can you turn those down to a 3? Can you turn those lights down? Quite a difference, whether it's fog, whether it's snow. Typically we used to keep our lights on quite a high level when we were in a foggy, lower vis situation. And now you're really starting to see some of that. And I've also talked to some pilots as well that the difference is night and day, basically. The lighting is just so crisp, so sharp, almost too much to a degree. Like you say, you start to reduce your light output on the regulators due to that.
Okay.
Robert,
And sorry, was that someone?
no, to say something about that. I think feedback from the pilot is very important. As you know, I keep preaching that any visual aid is, is it conspicuous? Is it legible? Is it comprehensible? Is it credible? The legibility is what Josh is talking about there. If the lighting is up to standard, then it's very legible. It's easy to see. I think that's important. I mean, you can read a book in poor light, but it's jolly hard work. When it's properly lit, then it's easy, and that reduces pilot workload. So it does matter the levels, and the reports that Josh has had back from pilots saying, well, it's very conspicuous is good. That's a real pat on the back, I think.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Because ultimately, that's what we do the lights for, the pilots. It's not for anybody else. You mentioned earlier the importance of sharing knowledge about the importance of lighting. How did you I think you mentioned the wing bars, but how did you go about communicate? What was the process there to get people to share and to get people to take that knowledge on board?
Yeah, Robert, I think that's a very crucial point to the question to bring up, actually. When I came over to the department that I'm in now, I'm responsible for snow clearing, responsible for hard surfaces and everything airside except for electrical. I came over here with some knowledge, though, from the electrical side. And to bring people into the room that have been here for 10, 15, 20, 25 years, that have been out there clearing snow for that period of time. And, I did a presentation for them on the importance, because I would go out during snow events, after snow events, and, have some seeing what we were doing out there. What could we do a little different? Not saying we were doing a bad job, but what could we do better? And I was noticing some areas of snow accumulation and, over top of some of our approach lighting on our Cat 2 runway, or inset approach lighting. And, we have large pieces of equipment that are approximately 60 feet long, and they weren't going right to the end of the threshold and turning. So, they were covering up some of the lights. And then we have our threshold lights and our wing bar lights were also not being cleared appropriately. When I brought that up and put it into a slide and told them, hey, do you know what these lights are for? Like, these lights, and not to come down on them by any means. It's more of an educational piece of, hey, these lights, these are what the pilots are using. Like, how can we as a group clear snow so effectively, and kind of also explain to them that, if there is a snow event that we can't clear these and they aren't visible, we need to NOTAM these out. We need to, notify the pilots, because ultimately that's who these are for. These are tools for them, and we need to either downgrade or NOTAM these lights out until we can get them to an acceptable level for that pilot. Because again, like Tony had said, and you said, Robert, that's the most important thing. That's what those lights are there for. And if we can't have them visible and conspicuous, as Tony mentioned, that's something we need to communicate back to them. So that was and it's really helped us here in Halifax. We've got some unique pieces of equipment now as well for clearing snow around lights, our elevated fixtures, and the whole team here of 40 staff for snow clearing has really taken on a whole new level. They also have tablets in their device, in their equipment, that they can, if they did take a light out, they can actually record it and mark it right away. So we can see if we have 2 lights out in a row, we can NOTAM, we can do immediate call-ins for the field electrical center to respond to them more quicker. So yeah, it's been really good for bringing the whole team together to ensure we're meeting the serviceability the best we can with the conditions we have as well.
Right. So good. Thank you for that. How is a question here from Matthew? I don't know if you do this at all, but it says how is the photometric data fed into your version of Maximo? Do you do that at all? Is that?
Yeah, so we've looked at doing a integration there. We haven't gone that far yet. Basically, what we're doing is we're using Maximo to push out preventative maintenance work orders with a job plan of what we need to do on a certain frequency. So that's kind of what we're using Maximo for at this time. Now, we have talked to Robert and team some time ago about, integrating the two systems. There's always a lot when you start to integrate databases together and really need to outweigh what the benefit of that is and what you're trying to accomplish. So we haven't done that yet, but really we use Maximo for our asset management or preventative maintenance work strategies here in Halifax. So we've got all of our maintenance intervals and everything set up within Maximo. And then we do actually do the work with our MALMS system.
Okay, thank you. Those are the questions. I'm getting lots of notes on the chat to say thanking you, Josh, for a very informative presentation. So just whilst I just check on there, we have a very eminent panel here, but of course the questions naturally are being directed to you, Josh, because I mean it's very much your story. Yeah, more thanks coming up. But so if I could just go around, can I have your feedback if I go around the panel? Tony, what are your thoughts? This is the first time you've seen this story.
One is I've been watching Joshua the last 3 quarters of an hour, and just feeling, wow, this is gold standard stuff. Really hits so many targets and says so many right things. A couple of things I want to say particularly. I picked up, Josh, what you were saying, that in the process of the new project with the LEDs or whatever it is, you have been involved in the process of specifying and procuring and initial installation acceptance. And what we've heard in previous webinars, that isn't perhaps common around the business. So many maintenance departments don't get to see the equipment until it's been handed over by the contractor. And that, I think, stores up all sorts of problems in all sorts of ways. And to hear something of the fact that there was a dialogue right through, so that the maintenance staff were involved in the procurement and everything. So it was well understood what they were going to be asked to maintain. I think that's a very important point that I heard in what you're saying. And the other thing is, generally, this presentation, I think it's such an informative presentation, very educational. We talk about doing courses, maintenance courses, various levels of so people are then certificated to do their jobs. There's some level in that. Perhaps it's at the management level, the person responsible. This presentation, I think, should be an integral part of that. They should be the people who are trained should see this presentation to inform them as to why it's important and how it really works. It isn't just, it really does make the point very much how important this is to the end user. So, this would be a very good training video in training programs, I think, if that was possible. I think that would, because my experience with our staff back at Bedford on the airfield, occasionally we'd take the maintenance people flying with us and do some approaches, so they got appreciation of what they were doing and why it was important. And I think if your maintenance staff are on board with that and can really see why they're doing it, really what the end product is, I think that's a good motivational thing to do.
That's
I would like, everyone, every airport to see this. People at your maintenance staff, we encourage them. But this is the way to do it, and the benefits of doing it, and the necessity of doing it.
right. So that's that. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, well, I just had a note here from Wayne Rolfe, who's just commenting that he was very much involved when at the start of your journey, and he's just commenting how great it is to see the how far you've come and where you've taken all of this, and to see that and I think it's a very important aspect that you can use the data to engage on a project, but you're actually showing that you delivered what you promised.
Absolutely. And people like Wayne were, again, a key contributor to getting us a product that was going to work, right? We were able to test some products. We were able to test it with your equipment, Robert. One thing that Tony's mentioned there as well from the procurement process, you're right, Tony. Unfortunately, maintenance and operations don't always get a say in what they get. And myself and a manager here, I remember sitting with our engineering team and saying, we need to go with sapphire lenses. And they were saying, well, we don't have money for them. I remember that. We don't have money in the budget for sapphire lenses to replace all the lights on the airfield with sapphire. And I was able to pull up this data and say, well, that's fine. You don't have money now. We'll be replacing every single light on the airfield in 6 months. Yeah. Because this is what we have from our data. So we either spend that little extra investment now and get a product that will work for us, or, we're back to square one here in no time. So, it was a very easy selling feature, put it that way.
Mm-hmm. I think adequate funding for ongoing maintenance should be foundational in the project development phase, and not something you then start pleading for when the equipment is all installed and handed over to you.
Yes.
I'm just thinking of our military, because I work with both civil and the military. Over the years, they develop it that they have a new aircraft type. They don't just budget for buying the aeroplane and getting into service. They let long-term maintenance contracts. So right up front, the maintenance money is there. And I think good principle.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Keith, you've first time you've seen the Halifax story. We've talked about it, I know. What are your takeaways from? What are the key elements you've taken from today's presentation?
I think thank you, Joss. I think it's an excellent presentation, and it is one of the aspects that I've been promoting in my training and technical support around the world. These very facts, data-driven decisions. You collect data, you analyze the data, and you present the data, and at the end of the day, for the visual aid is part of an integrated system for safe aircraft operations, whether it's follow the green on the ground or whether it's the runway related lights particularly for landing. So to be able to demonstrate from a practical viewpoint an airfield that has a lot of challenges, and in Halifax you have a lot of challenges because of the Arctic type conditions, at certain times of the year, and the environmental conditions, whether we are in the desert or whether we're in the tropics or whether we're in the those Arctic conditions, they're all different, so one thing does not fit all. And the aspects of the discussion you've had about the sapphire lenses, I've certainly been discussing it for quite a long time. And from my times in my previous job as a head of service for an international supplier, and we discussed it some 15 years ago. But to be able to collect the data, analyze the data, and use it in a practical demonstration is very, very important. I know, Ryan, you presented some aspects about the asset management, and so you've done a lot of work in this area in your Manchester Airports Group period. So excellent, an excellent presentation. I would love to be able to use this presentation as a demonstration, as Tony has said, in training courses around the world. I think it's really, really important. The demonstration of a practical application. I could talk about it until the cows come home, until you see it in for real. And as you say about, there is a price for sapphire coated lenses, but if you think things that the sapphire coated lenses are expensive, try an accident.
And I think, you know, I'd add that you know, we're not just talking about a snowy environment. I'm seeing damaged lenses attributable to jet blast, to sand, exposure to sand, and other environmental conditions and so damaged lenses, and whatever the cause, I think the protection afforded by sapphire is a very, very worthwhile investment. At the end of the day, an LED fixture is designed to be, you know, is to last a long time. It's and a lens and a sapphire lens, I think, is appropriate for this type of is for, you know, to accommodate. It's appropriate for meeting the requirements for a long life cycle. Ryan, so you've come from Manchester there. What do obviously with a MALMS hat on now, but what do you think? What would be the takeaway from you know, if we're going back to Manchester now, what would we be taking away from today's presentation?
Yeah, cheers, Robert. Josh, I think your presentation was excellent. I think, as previously said, it's a fine example to follow, and it's I've seen a lot of similarities, but also the differences between how different airports, you know, deploy the MALMS system. But it's really important to, and you've shown a time frame in your presentation of you know, identifying that you are having issues with those legacy light fittings, as you referred to them as, and you've shown you know, its longevity. It doesn't, things like that don't change overnight. There's a lot of hard work, money, effort that have gone into that, and it's important for others to realize that if they haven't realized already, they need to start looking at change, looking at investment in maintenance, because it won't happen overnight. It's a long-term project, but you've certainly reaped the rewards from that, and it's a fine example.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the kind words there, and you're right. I'm very intrigued to know that, you know, Wayne, I know Wayne Rolfe there mentioned something a few minutes ago, and he was very helpful for us back at the initial, because we started talking about, and I think Wayne might have brought it up to us at that time, about sapphire lenses, you know, and reached out to a very northern airport. I forget where it was now, and they had their fixtures in the ground for almost, I believe it was 6 or 7 years, and they were still passing the photometric results, right? So we took all the information we could get from the experts out there, you know, and used that data. And now, if someone at the airport here said we were going to put an inset fixture in without a sapphire lens, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people saying that's not happening. We're not doing that. That's not going to last. So it'd be very interesting to me on how other airports are maintaining their airfields without sapphire lenses, whether that's dust, whether that's, jet blast, rubber deposits, what's scratching those? Because again, in my presentation there of, just taking a razor blade and scratching the original, just a plain glass lens, very easy to do. You can make a mess of them with so quick. And for the sapphire, it's amazing just a coating on what that actually does for the fixture. Like I said, when we're starting to see the aluminum now on the fixture wearing, and the lens still being prominent and allowing the light out, which is ultimately, like you mentioned, Robert, the LEDs are meant to last for a long time. So why aren't we providing a lens in a fixture that is able to support that, right?
Yeah. And as Tony Coates, you're at the EASA safety conference this week. So I know it hasn't started yet, but clearly this is all about safety. It's all about compliance. How would we be taking this into your training going forward?
I think taking it into the training, it's we've got a couple of courses coming up, which are the compliance management courses, and it's the classic, superb example of management working together in different departments and getting it right by listening, discussing, talking, and not being funny, having the guts to go with a decision, which realistically they know is going to cost them money initially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Rob, we've been talking about using AI in artificial intelligence in our management reporting tools. Josh mentioned there using the data to predict, future asset cycles. So, you're going to have to replace these fixtures in 2030. Is this how do you see us doing that? What do we?
Yeah.
How do you see the future?
Well, one of the important things is having good data in the first place. If you're going to train an AI system, you need a lot of data and good data to train it with. And you need configuration data. You need to know the make and model of the fittings, the type of circuits, geographical information. All those things need to be good to compare the results you've got, and then train an AI system to produce those future values and predicted maintenance. Then you can use that to automatically adjust your maintenance schedules, your cleaning, your torque, lamp replacements, all those things. Another thing we can use AI for is suggesting some maintenance outcomes. So if we could analyze the Isocondylar pictures, we could maybe suggest maintenance actions based on the data we're seeing. I absolutely love the presentation, Josh. I've met you at one of our user group meetings, I'm sure. And from a software testing point of view, Halifax is one of the airports I follow because your data is excellent and you do everything. So, I'm there in the background, and I followed your story over the years. And I thought the presentation today, the striking before and after course bar charts, that was excellent to see. Really nice to see the reports we've developed used in anger, and yeah, very, very impressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Really appreciate that. It's been a journey. Again, when we first rented our Photometrics trailer, I don't think we ever anticipated being where we are today. We're a small airport, 4.2 million passengers, which, if we can do it, any airport out there can do this. Not only from a staffing, from the initial process and rollout, from the funding standpoint, a small airport like us, it's not a major cost, and actually it's probably reduced cost for us in one way, shape, or form as well from a maintenance strategy. And at the end of the day, it's not all about money, it's about the safety, and that's what we're talking about. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rob. And Kev, you, I know we very much, we focus on the hands-on training and the using the tools and stuff, but I can see a very strong case for developing the analytics training in aspects of in the relation to airfield lighting, because this is clearly. I think you used the term. It was in terms of the time and effort, in your journey. You proved people's expectations wrong, Josh, and very much it was down to the analytics. And you're able to use the data very effectively, such that you actually spend, amazingly, with those tremendous results, you actually spend less time on the runway doing the work. So, so do you foresee an analytics module for our future training?
Absolutely, Robert. I mean, the condition-based monitoring side of things has been there for the last 20 some years. And I think this case study just proves the point that if you've got the data, you can start plotting trends of failures. And that's exactly what's happened. And I think this is an ideal module to certainly include in training courses. It's, I think what they've achieved in Halifax is absolutely outstanding. Yeah.
So look, this is really, this is a tremendous story, and I think, as you say, if you, I think you're very generous, and you say if you can do it, anyone can do it. But I think if you have the will to do it, and you can absolutely. But here we've seen a beautiful example of how it can be done if you have the intent, the will, the passion, and just as I think he said, we if we may use this presentation is recorded, it will be on our website, and if we can use this to show future generations of airfield electricians all over the world how it should be done, not how it could be done, how it should be done, how it is being done, then I think it would be a tremendous for everybody.
I don't know how you make how you meet regulation without doing it this way. I think that's a better way to put it. It's not how it should be done. It's how the regulations, how the standards are developed. You got to meet those somehow, and without testing, without implementing these processes, I don't know how an airport could actually meet the regulations. Now that's with our regulations here in Canada, and I'm sure it's all over the world. So it's not even how it should be done; it's how it needs to be done.
And I can't think of any better way of finishing up on that thought, on that note. I'd like to thank you on behalf of all of the panel. I'd like to thank the whole panel. I'd like to thank our audience for participating today. But above all, thank you, Josh, for telling us and sharing your story. Have a great week. Have a great month, everybody, and look forward to seeing you all back on the 26th of. So save the date, 26th of November. Next TMS Tuesday. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Cheers.